Welcome to the Fireside Chat as part of the Fox Hollow. My name is Keelin.
And I'm Schuyler.
Over the next few weeks, we're discussing the complicated and critical issue of overcoming adversity. There are many types of adversity we face every day. For us right now, loved ones are on our minds. Last week, our great-grandma died, and a year ago this weekend, our mom was in the hospital.
So, it's not a great weekend.
No.
It's not been the best week or the best year in terms of terrible things that have happened to people that we love.
Yeah, and like my grandma said, or our grandma said a few days ago, she was like, oh, it's another bad birthday for Keelin.
Yeah.
I can't catch a break.
Every March 17th is really... something terrible happens.
Around the 17th. Either, because even typically I get sick. Fingers crossed that I'm not sick this year. But I still have like 12 hours.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully I don't get sick. But typically I'm sick. Like last year I was sick and our mom was sick.
And so we had to rush her to the hospital.
And you were sick.
I was also sick. It was really terrible.
Yeah.
And then she was in a coma for a week. So
you did not explain that well at all.
No. But we don't need to explain the specifics.
Yeah.
It's just the fact is, like, our mom was in the hospital. She was
in the hospital for 2 weeks.
She was out for...
And I had McDonald's in a hospital for my birthday dinner last year. So
we can try to make it a little bit better this year.
Yeah. We have high hopes. I have high hopes.
Cookie cake.
At least some sort of cake.
Oh man, I
don't think I got a cake at all last year. I didn't get like anything last year.
And so now it's like I was just grateful that we didn't have great grandma's funeral on Monday, which for listeners that's today for you, but for us it's in a couple days.
Yes.
But I was just grateful. So it's on Monday, but it's not Sunday. It's your birthday.
Yeah.
Because that would be... It's already bad enough. It's been a tough couple weeks. So we were already planning on doing Overcoming Adversity series, and then this all kind of went down, and
now we really need to overcome some adversities in our own personal lives.
Death is like the inevitable adversity that everyone has to face. But it's the one that at the end of our lives, we can't really overcome it. You just succumb to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's tough. So when you're grieving the loss of somebody, you have to overcome that adversity, but then you're also faced with the reality that all your other loved ones and you yourself are also going to one day die.
Don't bring that up.
I know.
Don't put it in our heads.
But I think that's one of the hardest parts. It's not just saying goodbye to somebody that you're never going to experience a new thought from them or a new experience from that person, because that's hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
But then I think that's really what broke me this week, is just I don't think about it on a daily basis.
No, I try not to think about death.
But I'm gonna, then I was thinking about you and our parents and our grandparents and everybody.
Just talk about death in general right now.
It's really tough.
Completely off topic, not family related. But this weekend, well, over the last few days, western Nebraska has been flooded, like, greatly out in the Panhandle and everywhere. And it's calving season, so there's a bunch of newborn baby calves around, and grown cows too, but the flood waters took a lot of calves' lives, which is not only
I didn't hear that.
Which is not only like animals' lives, but like farmers' income
is impacted.
Yeah, so it's not just like, and that's the thing about death in general too. It doesn't just affect you or the person who died. It affects more people than you think about, even like whether it's an animal dying, like a pet that you have dying, livestock, or somebody that you or just acquaintances with, or somebody who is your spouse or your mother or something like that. It's a lot, like they're very different things, but they all intertwine into the same subject of, you realize that death is inevitable, at least at this point, and it'll happen someday, and you have no idea how it's going to happen. Luckily, our great-grandma lived to 98, so she lived a very long life, which a lot of people are not graced with. So,
right. I think it does have, you have a point about animals impacting the economy, but also death in general impacts the economy. Like, there's an entire industry around death, like mortuaries and everything.
Embalming,
but also like the nursing home where she was located, and also, I don't bring this up, I haven't asked, this is not like, I don't really, my care level on this is low, but I feel like it's going to cause even more tension. But like the reading of the will when loved ones pass is like, I feel like there's a lot of stress and tension around that for people who, like, let's get this straight, you don't have a right to anybody's money.
No.
So when someone passes, if they put you in their will or didn't put you in their will, that's their decision, and you just kind of have to deal with it. But I've seen time and time again, people get really stressed out about
how much money they're getting, or if they're getting anything, or...
You should never rely on that. You should never expect anything. You shouldn't be personally offended if someone didn't leave you any money in their will, because they did it for a reason, and that's their personal choice. But I know, I have a feeling that it's not going to be good. Yeah. Maybe it'll be neutral. Maybe everybody will walk away happy. But like, inevitably, someone's always...
Will readings typically are never...
It's not going to be good. So...
And like, it's a high stress time in general.
Extra layer on top of...
And planning funerals, grieving, and everything. Ugh. It's all...
Funerals cost so much money.
Funerals cost money. Death is expensive.
It is.
It's like, you think, oh, it's expensive to live life. It's also very expensive to die.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that the world works like this, but... Because before, it was like, oh, our loved one died. Let's just, pick some flowers, sing a tune, and throw them in the ground.
Yeah, but now it's like, you gotta get the coffin, you gotta,
there's the legal things.
Yeah, you got all of the flowers, you got the reception food. Well, you probably always had food back in the day too, but it was probably more like a potluck.
Yeah, and probably more... Times
are different.
They were gonna have to eat anyway. That's the thing, but you don't have to, like...
Yeah, it's like...
You wouldn't make the family
it's almost...
whose loved one died, like, provide snacks.
Well, right, like, the expense is such that it's like a wedding. Mm-hmm. The average cost of weddings in America... What is it, like... $20,000 to $30,000 or something like that, and funerals are at the very least $10,000.
Yeah,
if not edging up on $15,000 to $20,000, depending on what you're doing. And most of that's in like the burial costs.
Yeah, burial not is just expensive. The coffins are expensive.
They are expensive.
Grave plots are expensive.
Oh yeah, property.
Imagine having a good grave spot.
So all of that just adds to the stress, and I feel like you're already grieving for a loved one, and then you have to do all that other stuff. So it wasn't surprising to me that our relatives hit breaking point this week.
Yeah. Because you're already upset.
But it didn't need to happen either.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's a certain point you stress yourself out too much, and that's kind of on you, because to me it's really sad, because all of our relatives who were closest to great grandma, like the beauty of grief in that moment is that you can all empathize with each other. You all lost someone really important to you, so you should be there for each other. So it's really sad. It's almost sadder than the death itself when people, when your loved ones are lashing out at each other because they're stressed and they're resentful about something.
It should also never be about, oh, who loved this person more, or who did this person love more, or who did more for this person. It should never be about that. And
it's not about, it is about you and your grief. Like, that's the point of the funeral, is to lay someone to rest and for you to grieve and say goodbye to them in that process. But their death isn't about you.
Yeah.
And like the life that they lived and the love that they gave. It's not a competition.
No. And also it's just the fact that, like, because when we were in the ICU last year with Mom and she was in her coma, the ICU nurses mainly see old folk that are like working on dying, that they're not quite there yet, but they're in the intensive care unit for a reason. They're on their way out. And there's most likely no chance for them to continue to survive or survive much longer outside of the ICU. And so our mom was very young for being in the ICU, youngest person there. And
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, everybody else was at least above 70.
I was kind of out of it that week.
Yeah.
But
well, you weren't there when she was like actually in the coma because you were sick with the flu.
I was there
a little near the end.
Well, I came in when I went out of a fever because I had to wait for to get over my fever because I couldn't go to the hospital, being contagious.
That would be terrible.
I was still worried though, so I did wear a mask into the hospital because I don't understand how.
I wore a mask for longer.
I don't understand how the flu works. So I'm like, even if I don't have a fever or if I feel like it's minimized, because I still wanted to see her.
Like if you're still coughing or
later
whatever.
At night, so I wouldn't expose anybody or anything like that. But I did see her even early on in the week. I just felt terrible and was really out of it. So. Yeah, but I saw her more later into the week as I was getting
and obviously
better.
When she woke up, because that's a lot more important. Like obviously
so much
to support her while she was under was important, but also giving her company when she's sitting in a hospital bed, not being able to do a lot.
She was really frustrated.
Yeah.
Too, because she couldn't type, she couldn't articulate.
Yeah. So, but what the ICU nurses said was like a lot of families come in and they're, even if their loved ones are awake, whether they're in a coma or awake in the ICU, that the families are like fighting over their bodies, like in the hospital, like in front of them.
Seriously?
Yeah, and they're arguing and doing all this stuff, and it's a very vicious climate to be around.
You can't even heal. You can't even like pass in
peace
and die in peace. Like,
and so,
wow.
Yeah, and so the ICU nurses was like, it's a breath of relief that you guys are very loving and supportive of her and Art, like, you know, fighting over.
I didn't even want to think that, or her like want her to, or even want to think that she was gonna die. Like,
no, but it's just like even medical decisions in general,
though. But or something worse could have happened. But I didn't even want to think about that. Like thinking about that was gonna take me over the edge, and it did a few times. But like,
yeah,
I just wanted to focus on her waking up.
Yeah, but it's like a lot of like the medical care and like what medicine she needed and all this stuff that that Dad had to decide on, and
that's
like
his decision.
And so nobody was like fighting him on that, and like he came and asked, like, we have a nurse in the family, he asked him like what all, like, to kind of dumb down what the nurses were saying for him, and it was very like, it's very good to have somebody who understands what's going on in the ICU and like all the technology that they're using and all that kind of stuff. So like that was very appreciated, and the fact that we have support from our entire family is great. But then like I feel like
relatively,
surrounding
I suppose
currently surrounding great grandma and her death, like her actual death, like it's stressing people out so much that they're being way more vicious about things than we were ever about our mom.
We're different though. So like we're talking about our immediate family, and the decision was always with Dad because he was her husband. He had the legal authority, and you know, if he'd come to us and been like, "I would like your input," then we could be like, "This is what we think."
And he did a lot of,
but ultimately he was the decision maker, and that was obvious to everybody. Like we conceded, like nobody was starting drama over that. I think the problem with, and someone could have started drama over that, but we didn't, because we respected his decision and we respected his authority to make that decision. And we respect
too that if,
and Mom, like obviously
we all knew what she would want to go down to. It's not like
we all had consensus.
It's not like any of us were estranged.
No, and it was always like, what's best for Mom, what would she want, and Dad was going to make a competent decision about that if it needed to be done. I think the problem with great grandma is that she has children
that are
who they both feel like it's on them to make the decision, or they both feel like it's on them to do everything. Or I mean, obviously they both need to be involved, but what we saw is like one sibling like going to the minister without the other one, and yelling at the other one's spouse, like their sibling-in-law, and that kind of thing. And that's not helpful. It's not productive.
An unhealthy way of dealing with the stress. And a lot of times too, like if you're dealing with this in your own life, whether your loved one is going through something with their health or something, or they have died and you have to deal with the like repercussions of what is going on, it's just be considerate. That's the biggest piece of advice that I can give.
Love each other.
It's be considerate.
There for each other.
Like when our parents inevitably die, like I'm not going to be at Schuyler's throat. I'm not gonna be like, no, I want Mom buried here.
We're gonna make decisions together, and we might disagree on things, but it's not a moment to be destructive.
No, and it's never the right moment to yell. It's like, hey, I don't think that that's best.
But I also saw people in this situation who were trying to control what other people were doing as a process of grieving. And you can't control what other people do or how they want to grieve. Like, you can't restrict visiting times with somebody who's on their deathbed.
And like,
because
also,
that's not fair or right.
Think about everybody else. And because she was 98, a great grandma. She had tons of grandkids. And
but we
great
knew this was happening. Everybody did. So it was kind of like everybody needed a moment with her, like at the same time
before she passed.
And we were considerate, but some relatives were not so considerate the process, but like everybody loved great grandma, or everyone needed to say their goodbyes, and you can't restrict or control how other people are going to grieve or like what they need to do in that process, especially when like, because she wasn't 100% with it at the end either. But she appreciated everybody that came, and she said thank you to everybody that came, and said how happy she was to see everyone. And so she understood that part, but to restrict the fact that she actually wanted people to be around, like that's all you want at the end of your life, is your loved ones there with you. Right. And someone was trying to say, oh, you can only visit for a shorter period of time. Now, I understand, like, the room was small, and so in our circumstance, if a new group of people came in and wanted to visit and there wasn't room and you'd already visited for a while, that's when you are respectful and you leave the room.
You don't just demand that you're there.
You can stay as long as you want unless the person specifically in that situation, the person who's dying or suffering, asks you to leave. And then, of course, you leave.
And that's kind of the same thing, too, with, like, hospital visits. If somebody is...
Let's just be clear. I don't know why I have to say that out loud.
Yeah.
That's really... It was really frustrating.
But, like, when they are competent enough to be able to tell you, like, hey, you know, I need some rest or whatever, like, that's your cue to get out and, like, go do your own thing. And you maybe come back tomorrow or something else. But it's just a lot of respect and, like, remaining respect for your loved ones.
Yeah.
Through tough times. And both the people who are still going to be around and the people who are either dying or injured or whatever, you have to respect everybody in these tough situations because they are your family or they are your
be there for
friends or whatever.
Right. It's the golden rule. It should be this simple. If you wouldn't want something done to you, don't do it to another person. If you wouldn't want your sibling to go to the minister to, like, set up the funeral service without you, or go and, I don't know, try to get access to the will early and try to screw everybody else in the process, like, if you wouldn't want that done to you, don't do it to other people, you know? Yeah. It's not respectful, it's not kosher.
And just discussions in general.
It's gonna make tensions even worse.
Yeah, and piss people off.
Yeah.
That you might...
People are already upset.
Yeah.
As it is. Emotions are already running at an all-time high, and then you're gonna go and do something that is going to really push people over the edge. Like, it was at the point where a relative was like, I can't ask this favor or, like, a recommendation or a suggestion because they're gonna yell at me again. So can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, I don't really care if I get yelled at, so I'll do it. Like, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, and people kind of flip the switch and it's like, no, I don't want this, I don't want that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll be prepared with it and definitely when you change your mind. And of course they changed their mind, but it was like, you just have to be
considerate,
steady too, like, if you're able to in that moment, because we're all grieving in our different ways, but I would definitely say I'm in a more stable position, and you as well, to, like, be reasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
And not as emotional about it. Like, I felt really good saying goodbye to great grandma, and I'll find a lot of closure in the funeral, and I think feel pretty good about that. But I'm not overly emotional. Like,
no.
I've cried a few times, but I'm not invested in it. Like, I feel like a few of our relatives are just
it's also at that point invested. If, like, our parents live to 98, I mean, like, you're very well aware that they're gonna die eventually.
Because she was in hospice, and then and then last week, you know, she went into palliative care, and when you go into palliative, it's not that much longer.
Yeah,
the nurse said. So we were all expecting it, so it wasn't sudden.
No, and, like, I still get that it's very stressful and it's very rough, but when you're so late in your own life, and then your parent or your loved one is also late in your life, in their life, you have to start to come to terms with it, because once they hit 90 or at least 95,
yeah, you kind of you
realize
expect it.
They're near the end of their life. They're not
you have your will and
getting around as easy.
I mean, there is an onus on the older person. Like, if you can kind of expect that things are going down, like, you should probably mend any relationships if you're able to, or smooth things over. And I don't think great grandma did that. I think she just kind of let things fester as well. So, like, you know, And there's nothing that can be done about that
No.
now, and she was never gonna do it, which wasn't considerate either. But yeah, there's a lot of obligations of people, and
the thing is also there's always
just be kind to each other.
there's always two stories or two sides to a story, so like
Or
we
more.
don't know
We
or
have
17 sides to
we
a
have
story.
no idea. Yeah.
So each person has their own version of what happens and in any scenario, so you don't know what your loved one might be thinking or feel about you, so just be nice to everybody in general. Moral of that story,
Yeah. So
just be nice.
But if you're expecting it, you're older, make sure that you have everything that you need to make it less stressful on your relatives. Will and testament, directives. I don't know. Just make it easier on
Let
your
them know what you
family.
want your funeral to look like.
Right, instead of just putting so much pressure. Now, of course, there are plenty of catastrophes that happen without warning. And of
Yeah.
course, there's no way. I mean, you should always have a will and testament. If you're at that point in your life where
If you're no longer a child.
especially if you have dependents, especially if you have something to leave behind, please have a living will and testament.
It's not super hard to put together.
No, you can do them online now.
Yeah.
I don't know. But as an attorney, I recommend that you go and see an attorney. But
Makes the process easier.
so much easier. And then of course it's not just the will, but the living will and testament. The testament and any directives too. Like if you went into a coma, it would say, here's what I need you to do in this situation.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Because
people,
we never thought that we'd go through that with Mom.
it was scary.
I never thought to myself, oh, my mom's gonna end up in the hospital on my birthday in a coma. That's not something that goes through your head, but it should be something that you're prepared for. Like, you don't know what's gonna happen to you. You could get into a car crash and end up needing surgery or some big scary thing that your family doesn't know exactly what you'd want. Like, they might know some
they'll
of the things.
fight based off of their own opinions.
Yeah. So
And not take your, they may know what you would want, but they're gonna
do what they want. So
Yeah,
you need
exactly.
to make your opinion legal. And
please do.
if you want what's done with your body to be what you want done with your body when you're not fully with it. So
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know, that's the hardest part of everything with loved ones is all of the family politics come out of the woodwork when something really good happens to maybe a little bit lesser extent, but if it's a stressful event like a wedding, I feel like some of the family politics comes out around that.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely always when it's a death or major injury or illness, if you have a relative who has cancer or something, I don't know, there's something about those stressful events where
people get touchy, they get pushy.
comes out. And how do you deal with, you're already overcoming your own grief or anxiety or adversity about an issue, so you're trying to manage that, and then on top of it everybody else is coming at you or coming at the issue.
Yeah.
In this circumstance, I'm just I'm gonna stay out of it as much as possible because my investment level is really low. But if it were a matter of Mom and she wasn't coming back and we had a relative who was well, you can't pull the plug, but it's what she wanted. Now suddenly I have a conflict with him.
Yeah.
And if she has no legal documents to say that, and dad's deciding, but this other, the other relative is like creating conflict about...
It's a big black dog. It scared me because I didn't see an owner. And
Did you think it was a bear?
I don't know. I thought it was a wolf or something, or like a stray dog. I'm like, what is that?
It was gonna come into the apartment?
No, it was just walking.
It scared you.
Yeah, it did.
Fear.
It's creepy.
I think so. Fundamentally, again, it all comes down to fear.
Yeah.
The dog is case in point. I don't know
I
why.
saw it out of the corner of my eye.
But it freaked you out in your reaction. You didn't know what it was at first, and then you had a reaction before you knew. I think that's what fear is.
Yeah.
Though. It's like, and now we have like fear of the unknown, fear of like what's going to happen to our relatives, fear of death.
Always.
Fear of uncertainty, but it's always like lashing out. It's always a reaction of like we don't have all the information, or we don't want the information, and we're reacting out of fear and like a stressful place.
Yeah.
And so to be grounded and overcome adversity instead of reacting out of fear, we should respond by gathering information and thinking about things rationally and coming to some kind of conclusion or collaborating with other people.
Yeah.
So it's like a response rather than a fear reaction. And I think everybody would be better off if everybody responded to stress and like managed it that way and helped each other out. But of course, that's not how the world works. People do react out of fear, and they lash out, and they're vicious, and they're hateful, or they're greedy. I don't know. There's something that happens. So then we have to respond to that as well.
Yeah.
So I've had to respond with people. And sometimes I've done a good job of it, and other times I've done a really terrible job of it. Like when I had to deal with a death in my partner's family, and there were people like, usually you would think that like, okay, if you have a death in the family, there's some kind of common courtesy that you give. Like recently at work and everything, everyone was just super supportive, and they're like, go do what you need to do and take care of yourself and everything. But I've had people who are like, oh, you had a death in the family or someone close to you, and there was just no empathy whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's like no common courtesy. They're just like, oh, well, you didn't do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, sorry, I had to go out of town also, and deal with the death of a loved one.
From
so like
workplaces,
you
just
don't get
general
priority in this situation.
From workplaces just in general, because I was talking to a friend the other day about, because I was talking about how a year ago our mom was in the hospital.
Same people did not like that either.
Yeah, he was talking about how he had to take care of his single mom when he had to take her to the hospital, and then he had to take care of her after she had gotten home too. And like he called into work and was like, yeah, I need to like take care of my mom. And they're like, oh, well, can you come in by like noon? And he's like, no. And
wow,
they were very disrespectful of just like him taking care of his loved one
during a time of need.
Yeah, it's like he is her only point of support.
Right.
Like, I don't care if that's his mom. It's like that's the one support that she has.
It just makes me so upset, because it's like the same circumstance. Mom was in the hospital. I had emailed my boss and told him, this is going on, but I'm gonna get the report to you as soon as possible. Thankfully, Mom had like woken up, and so I just like worked in the Starbucks at the hospital, to get the report done and stuff, because I was trying to meet a deadline despite that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like life does go on. But also, I hadn't checked my email in a week because, you know, she's been in the hospital.
And you were sick.
I was sick and she was in the hospital, so...
It was a lot of stress.
I hadn't even touched my computer in a week.
Yeah.
Which is almost unthinkable. Like, my
You barely texted me.
I was not there. And then, yeah, you know, a couple people were just, like, really disrespectful. And they're like, well... trying to email about something and saying it was an emergency. I'm like...
Is it...
No. You know what's a real emergency? Is like my mom's in the hospital. Also, if it's an emergency, why didn't you call me?
Yeah. Also,
if you're emailing me and I didn't respond and it's that big of a deal, like, call?
I don't care how important
it's not
work.
on,
like, work is very
not on the person
important.
who's grieving to, like, have to... There's some minimal things
yes.
that you should do, but...
Work is very important.
This was not time sensitive, so...
But... your loved ones and your family
they take precedent.
Way more important than work. And like, even if you have a deadline that's due the next day after you have to take your loved one to the hospital, it's
exactly.
like you push everything back. I don't care if you're the CEO of a company and you have stuff to run.
Come first.
Your loved
family
ones
is first.
Like, if your wife ends up in the hospital or your husband ends up in the hospital and you have
to drop everything.
Like,
yeah.
And the people that don't understand that are ridiculous.
I don't understand if...
Because, like, I get it. Money is very important in this world. And, like, yes, you have to have the money to take care of your loved ones.
It wasn't even a finance issue.
Yeah.
This is, like, a volunteer thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the like, most ridiculous thing. And I'm like, really? There's no empathy.
Yeah.
So sometimes that does happen, and you have to deal with some people who, like...
sometimes
don't get it, are narcissistic, are, like, have no empathy for...
Sometimes you realize that
greedy.
That's not where you want to work anymore because of how much disrespect they have for your time. And the things that are important to you.
Yeah, and I mean, that's fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
Again, family is first. When loved ones, when it's a life or death situation, when there are major health complications or anything like that, like, you have to be there for your loved ones.
Yeah.
And anybody who disrespects you or doesn't understand that or is unempathetic to that, like, they're really not worth being in your life. And they're not going to respect you as an employee. If you're in a work situation, you probably need to find a new workplace because...
might not be the best fit.
Yeah, it's not a good culture and it's not going to be productive for you. But you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of your family. Of course, you have to have that work-life balance where, you know... You have to provide for your family because you have medical bills. Like, Dad, even though he did have, like, plenty of health leave and stuff, but, like, he has to go back to work.
Yeah.
Because he has to make sure to take care of the family while Mom's still in the hospital and getting out of the hospital so that they can pay their medical bills.
Yeah, but
like,
then
that's
also
scary
his work
too.
Luckily his work understands that when something happens, like, you need to be there to take care of your family, and, like, if your loved one is still, like, injured or in any sort of way, like, impaired, that your work is gonna be a lot harder, and it's gonna take longer for you to meet those deadlines that they want. So you have to kind of compromise at work for those things, and compromise in your own personal life as well.
Yeah, I definitely get the productivity thing because and my boss was really sweet and has just been really awesome throughout this process and like made sure that I was okay and could take time off. And when I was working, she's like, hey, I understand on the day that Grandma died, I wasn't at work, and she's like, you can take it easy, like, so she was incredibly empathetic and understanding, but I have encountered people that are
and like, I definitely feel that too, because, like, I do stuff from home, and so, like, this week has just been really rough for me in general, productivity wise. I haven't got as much done and like not met all the goals that I personally wanted to reach, and like I can't be as hard on myself this week specifically because of what happened, and even like going on to, and now my birthday happening this weekend, and then Monday we have a funeral. And like it's just a busy weekend, honestly. The last
it's been
5 days,
week and a half almost. 8. It's been
just rough, everything. So
I guess my fundamental word of advice, again, I'll keep repeating it: be there for each other.
Always
love each other. I know it's easy to lash out at people when you're stressed out, but it's no good. I had a family acquaintance who recently experienced a death too, but I could tell she really wanted to work with her relatives, and so through like estate planning attorney, she also got a mediator. She wanted there to be mediation so that they could come to an agreement. They also have to come to an agreement because they're co-executing, but like I think that's important. Instead of making it a fight,
just get a mediator and work
with each other. Your
just issues.
Love each other. And be there for each other, because
you don't want the death to be the end of your relationship with somebody.
And I feel like so often it is too. Like people disown each other
because that might have been the only person that was holding them together. So
it's tough. So are there any other last statements? The last will and testament of this episode of the podcast?
I don't think so. I think just remembering to be kind to everybody in all of these times of need. In literally any circumstance, with your loved ones, your friends, your acquaintances, just be there for each other. Because again, it's like everybody has a different side of the story. Everybody has different feelings. And so you might feel like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. She was 98, but then somebody else is like bawling their eyes out all day, every day, because that's how much she meant. You know? And so like, and then there's in-betweens. And so like everybody has different experiences, and you can't judge somebody for being sad about it, because it is something to be sad about. Like in general, like anything's gonna be rough. Like any kind of adversity that you face is going to be rough. So whether you take it out by crying at night or in the middle of work, like that might happen, and that might be how your mind deals with it, versus somebody who maybe doesn't have that many emotions in the same position that you are in. So everybody's different, and just because your way is different doesn't mean that it's the wrong way to deal with it and overcome it.
Everyone's gonna grieve in different ways. The only thing that I don't want is like your grief to cause other people more stress and more harm. Like if you're overcoming adversity, or like you're struggling with adversity, don't create more adversity for other people.
No, that's
so counterintuitive, and it's not going to help you either. It just creates more stress and tension, because then nobody can help you. And you can't help yourself either. So
no, it doesn't. It just makes the situation worse.
So we're going to continue to discuss our own experiences in overcoming adversity and how to help others with their adversities. So we hope to see you over the next few weeks with our overcoming adversity arc.
If you like what we're doing here, please consider becoming a supporter of the show. The Fireside Chat podcast is part of a new entertainment hub called The Fox Hollow. We have shows about money, gaming, music, legal comedy, and more on YouTube, and we post new Fireside Chat episodes every Monday. If you'd like to ask a question or submit a public comment to be shared on the podcast, please email us at thefoxhollowhub@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the podcast, please become a patron by donating at patreon.com/thefoxhollow, linked in the description below. You can follow us on Instagram at thefoxhollow.yt, and if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss another podcast or video.
If you haven't checked out Robinhood yet, you definitely should. Robinhood is an online investing and banking app. They give the power back to the people by not charging fees or commissions when you go to buy and sell stocks. Use this referral code to get started. share.robinhood.com/SCHEYLG7 and you'll receive one free share of a random stock. And you have the chance to win some big name investments like Apple and Berkshire Hathaway. By using this referral code, both you, the listener, and myself will receive a random share of stock. This is a great way to give back to the show while also getting a gift in return. We post new podcasts every Monday and new videos every Friday. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next week. Bye!